Hi everyone, Sandra Duran Wilson here, and welcome to this week's Mixed Media Soul Sparks. Every week I bring you new ideas to help kind of jump you into a new way of creating. And this week we're going to kind of jump back into grade school, and I'm going to show you some really fun ways, no better way to say it, I mean it's little kid stuff, to make your own stamps. And I'm using this fun foam that has an adhesive backing on it. And I got this at the kids section at the craft store. And I'm going to be cutting this up and creating my own stamps. And it's just so easy and simple to do. And then I'll be showing you some ways to layer these pieces to get some different, I don't know, just different patterns. So first of all, I wanted to show you this one that I actually took a stencil and drew onto the piece, onto the back of the foam, because it's got this paper backing. So you can just draw your image. You could use a stencil or just sketch your own. And then I cut it out, took it off, and just adhered it to this piece of cardboard. The other way, there are any different number of things you can use for your backing. This is a vinyl fabric, which I'll be doing a lesson on that coming up, and just some leftover plastic. This was leftover, this was a part, I cut these shapes out to make these pieces, and then I used the leftovers over here. So everything gets used. This is what I was looking for. This was another piece made using a stencil where I cut out the shapes from the stencil, and when I put it down, I just kind of followed the same pattern. You could use a pen to write where it would go, or just eyeball it and change your stencil or change your shape a little bit from what the stencil was. Then this just shows you that you don't have to stay within the bounds of your backing paper. And this shape was made using these kind of scissors, which create kind of different edges. So you see this shape, it's almost like a decal edge paper. So many fun things to do. But let's just add a few more here. And let's just kind of go along here. And then you just take it. I'll get some of this out of our way so we can see. Here's one I'm working on. This is just a foam core. This is just mat board. Any of these will work. I'm going to take this one. And now that I've got that edge, you just peel the paper backing off and press it down. Now another great thing you can do with this foam is you can take the end of your brush. Because it's foam, just like I showed you in that earlier one with styrofoam, you can actually press into it, make indentations, even after you've got it onto your backing. You really have to press hard. It's not quite like the styrofoam where it'll hold the shape, but you can get some indentations. Now, before I start to show you how to kind of layer these images, I want to show you another fun foam stamp project. So let's just move this stuff out of the way. And all these little bits and pieces, it really becomes an interesting design challenge to see how you can use them up. I mean, I've got little squares here that I've made. Over here, it's just leftover pieces. And this is, you can see I have black on it. This makes a great black and white pattern that's not perfect. kind of like what you would get with a roller. Even the leftovers of my dragonfly could become like a reverse stamp. So if I put this onto, a piece of paper or the backing board and then use this as my stamp, so it becomes like the negative stamp, negative space rather. All right. So again, you find these at the kids section. Now this is called Magic Stamp, blue foam magic stamp. And it's pieces like this, pretty thick. I've seen it sold as thinner pieces. You can buy them thinner. You can even use foam this thin to get impressions. I've also used the foam flooring that comes like in the kids' playroom with those different wild colors, and you can cut that up into shapes. And I'm going to show you how to heat this and get an impression on it. So I'm using this rigid texture plate, but you can use anything. One of my favorite stamps that I've made was with a handful of paper clips, and another was a handful of rubber bands. And the process is all the same. This side of the stamp was made using a woven placemat. And as you can see, you can do different images on different sides. This was using a different texture plate. It was a softer texture plate. And here's one you can see using this type of texture plate. You can get these in shapes like this. It's a little hard to cut these. They're, the really thick ones, but the thin ones are easy to cut. So what you're going to need is a heat gun. And I hold it with my hand, because if you just set it down and you start to heat it like that, you're not going to know when it's hot enough, and you can actually burn this. So if I'm holding it in my hand and I'm going to start to heat it, you want to have your texture plate there. If my hand starts to burn, I'm going to know it's too hot. So it can take a little while to get this heated. I've even taken a really long extension cord and gone outside and used this on the tree bark or on the rocks in the patio. Anything is up for texture. You're going to see this start to kind of expand as it gets hot. Sometimes it helps to have another person handy to grab the heat gun, because when this is hot enough, I immediately need to flip it and press it down into the texture. But I can do it by myself too. It's looking like it's about there. If you look at it on the side here, you can see how it's expanding on the top more than what it is on the bottom. So that's how you can tell when it's ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to turn the heat gun off and I'm going to press it into this plate. And you can see the impression that I get. Looks pretty good. Now, I can use this time and time again. This is a really deep one, and you can see there's still some paint on it. This one I probably wouldn't want to try and redo, but this one I can heat the other side, get a different impression, and if I've cleaned it off really well, I can come back in and reheat it and put a different pattern in it. So it's reusable in that way. After a while, after it gets used about this much, it really doesn't reheat very well. So you want to make sure that you clean it well after each use. And now I want to show you how to get the paint on there and ways to use these. I love these blue foam stamps. They're just so much fun. I use them a lot in some of my scribble to structure class. I'm going to try using this Holbein matte paint because it is more opaque You know, a lot of times I'm using very transparent or translucent paints, and this time I want paints that are opaque, that are going to be able to cover up what's underneath. Holbein is good for that. I just noticed that Golden came out with some of the matte acrylics as well, and I'm going to show you how to ink different ones. Let's go back over to this one that I just made. And I'm going to use my brush on this one. And here I can use, let's go with this paint. This is a fluid, so we'll be able to see the differences. So when I want to get the paint on, I'm just loading up my brush on the side, tapping it, and then I'm just going to drag it over the surface. I'm going to put it on this white one just so you can see it better. And I can even play with these patterns, kind of extend them. It's a great way to start to get some background shapes. Let's kind of go this way. Now if I wanted to clean this, because this is paper, I don't want to wash it in the sink. If I had it on this vinyl, it would be very easy to wash this in the sink. But if it's on the paper, I just put a little bit of water on a paper towel and just kind of clean it off. You really don't need to clean it that much. These are so inexpensive and easy to make. Now, if I have this red one, let's just take a look. Now that I cleaned that off, let's just try putting right there. Because you're going to see that it doesn't, it's not enough opacity to it. Kind of blends in. This particular yellow is more transparent. But what I want to do here is I want to create these layers of stamps. And usually they need to dry in between the layers. So I'm only going to show you a couple of layers here. And this is a cosmetic sponge. I'm going to come in here with I don't want the orange on there. Let's try the orange on here so we can see it. Do you see I'm just kind of dragging it over because I don't want to brush the whole thing. Kind of got too much of it on right there, but that's okay. This is not about perfection. But look at what an easy way it is to get a nice impression there with these things. And I can just kind of keep going. This is what I love. This is the easiest way to clean these things up. Just hold them over your water jug, spray it with some water, and you have to do this right away. And they get clean quite easily. Now, if I wanted to come in with the blue, this is what I wanted to show you over this red. Just tapping this a bit, and I'm dragging it over the surface. If you kind of move it in different directions, you're going to get it inked up nicely. And then I can come here and look at how that sits on the surface over that red because of the opacity. And I can just come across here, do it again. going to use up the rest of this paint right here. These matte paints tend to be a bit more expensive, probably because they have more pigments in them. Watch out, they jump around. Okay, so now I'll let that dry. I'll come back in, I'll do some more layers, and I'll show you the finished piece of what it looks like. Just to let you know, this part up here was another experiment. So it's fabric and glue and beads and gel, and you know, I always have these pieces laying around. So this is just a fun little leftover piece. Again, to clean it, just spray it like this with water and blot it off, and you're ready to go. It's kind of fun to mix the opaque paints, try an area with some transparent paints, come back in, wait for it to dry, do another layer, and I'll keep working on these two with both stamps. The one thing I was going to show you with this other piece, now that you've seen these layers, is if you layer like this piece and then that piece, you're going to have this edge. So I might use these in one of these pieces. But fun with foam stamps, it's like going back to grade school. So go play, have some fun, work with opaque and transparent paints, and I will see you next week. Join the Creative Awakening community on Facebook, where you'll be able to post your art, connect with other creatives around the world, and ask questions. Use the hashtag #MixedMediaSoulSparks when posting your work on social media. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next week.